Okay, this is Ransom1690. So I did a secret recording yesterday, and I'm gonna attempt to give some context to it today. Even though a lot of it's pretty obvious, but I feel some context also help with the conversation. But I'm gonna do it in reverse order. I'm gonna talk about the whole family situation first, with my grandma or her late mom, and just her, how she had them and how my mom had me and my brothers and sisters and all of that. Because I think it's gonna really make a lot of sense to just what's going on now. So you heard in the recording yesterday, towards the end or the middle of it to the end, how, let me take this piece out real quick before it burns. Well, that was close. Still may need to put it back in there. Had it cooking up too high because our stove sucks and stuff. So it's like I gotta turn the temperature up more than usual. Anyway, back on topic. This was shortly after the whole house discussion, the insurance discussion, and my mom hit her little religious mode, talking about, oh, I believe in God or some shit like that. And I think she was about to ask me to pray too, which she always doing that, even though she knows I'm not a believer. She still be asking me to pray and stuff. So I just told her, like, you know how I feel about that. And she asked me, well, what do I believe? And, that's when I told her, well, I believe I shouldn't have existed. So, that's really what sparked the whole, her to go into that, because she was like, oh, she thought the same way, but I really don't think we were really on the page, because she started getting into her, again, like just how she was born. And she says she thinks she's an accident. Like, that's not really what I was meaning, but I guess that's how she interpreted it. And in her little rant, she was talking about how she thought she was an only child. Like, she didn't know she had brothers and sisters because I guess they were staying with another relative at the time. And her mom just went, picked them up one day and just kept them. Didn't take any of them back to the other relatives. So it was two of my uncles, and my auntie, but I mean, of course, then they were like, kids and shit. So how my mom keeps reciting it is my granny again went, picked my auntie and my uncles up and just didn't take them back. They from then on out, they were just kind of living with my grandma in the same house and shit. And that's how my mom always told that story. Uh, but a lot of stuff that she left out, which she would also tell me in a, damn, this fucking pizza stuck, dude. Okay, hold up, y'all. This is fucking annoying, man. I should have oiled this bullshit down. This bullshit. So anyway, my mom really left out a lot from that retelling, because what she often tells me, in addition to that, was that they was living in some ratchet ass house on Section 8. And the way she describes it is that the house they were living in, partially as kids, like it was just really run down, like it was in the ghetto side of the neighborhood, and it didn't have proper floors. She would always describe to me how, like, the floors were basically planks, and you could just move the plank and see up under the house and just see the dirt and all that under the house. That's what she would tell me. And then later on, I guess when everyone got a little older, they moved into a somewhat nicer house, which her mom ended up living in the rest of her life, basically. And that's when everything kind of takes a turn, because, my mom, you would have heard her say that her mom went to jail for something, and that she told me in the past that she expects it to be murder or something. And she told me, like, in the past, how she would wind up finding the court document to that. So that's about as far as she went with just kind of things being messed up or not right with our family, but already, like, you can see that it's not getting off to a good start. And what wasn't told in our recording was that one of the children, like, who was one of my uncles that she was keeping at the time, she would beat him constantly. We call him now, know him now as Uncle Reggie. That's what we call him now. But at the time when he was a kid, and like him and my mom, they both verified this story that he was just always getting beat. Fucking camera. Okay. He was just always getting beat for something. And he didn't know why. No one knows why he was always getting beat. And I think this was shortly after my granny got saved. She would beat my uncle. First, if they were going to church, they was going to, according to my mom, they was going to church every single night. So it's like they would go to school, come home, and they wouldn't even have time to do their homework. They have to take it to church to do it at church, because my granny was just that strict of a Pentecostal Christian. They had to go every night. And my mom would say at the time just how much she hated it and shit. Like, she hated going to church when she was a kid. And so they would go to church every night and come home. And they would how she would describe my granny is just she was real strict. She didn't really communicate with them much, or really just open up to them. Like, she was one of those parents that wholeheartedly believed kids were meant to be seen and not heard. One of those old school, strict black parents. But it's like, my uncle, Uncle Reggie, she would just, according to what I heard, again, she would just always beat him just for no reason. And nobody ever knew why. And they said, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't bad. A bad kid, never got in trouble in school. And, according to my mom, he was known to be the smartest person in the family. And of course they had to be, because they couldn't bring back any low grades, because if they brought back any C's or D's, they would get beat. And it's like, to this day, even after my granny's passing, no one knows why he just got beat so much. He even asked the question at her funeral, just, why was I always getting beat? Nobody knows. Another thing that wasn't mentioned was that, again, like, this is all coming from my mom. Like, when she would talk to me about her upbringing, is that my granny, she was known, she had at least, I think, 2 different abusive relationships, and my mom would talk about how, like, when she was, like, real small, I forgot what age, maybe 6 or 5, how she would be sitting on the couch and she would just hear, like, noise going on in her room, banging and stuff, and just seeing, like, my granny just running out the room, and then the man coming out saying, hey, get your ass back in here. And she'd go back in the room and the door was shut. And, like, but that's all that my mom could remember of that. And she would say, like, the dad, like, he never abused her, but he would just always abuse my granny, like, And so already you see, just you are hearing just the way that this family, this bloodline is going, like, it's already not going down a good road. And it's like, when everyone got grown and moved out the house, my mom was the last one still there. And so she tells me, like, she wanted to be a truck driver. She wanted to drive trucks, but for whatever reason, she just never really pursued that. She just never really tried to pursue an avenue that she was interested in. She just kind of stayed at the house with her mom, and just, that's when she met my dad. She was in late high school at the time, and that's when she met my dad. And according to her, she was already pregnant with my sister from another unrelated man. And so she says she met my dad with him just driving up beside her while she was walking. Like, I guess he was a Tyrone at the time. And he just kind of hollered at her. And at first she rejected his, advances, but, she kind of just softened up to him, and they got together. And that's when the rest of us, me and my 3 brothers, were born. Now, keep in mind, I think she told me, like, now she did have a job at the time. She told me she was working out of Payless Shoes when she had us. So here we are, like, we're still living at the house with mom. Don't have really a stable job. I mean, granted, I'm pretty sure stuff was cheaper back then, but still, working out of Payless Shoes and still living at the house, which since she's saying she was walking at the time, she didn't have a car. That is not the best scenario to have kids under, but, and then the rest of the story, which was told in the recording. They started getting together, and it's like, At the moment, she kept deciding to try to be a truck driver. She kept getting pregnant for some reason, you know. I mean, really, it was just carelessness. But according to her, it was God's plan, you know, for us to be here, apparently. You know, it wasn't God's plan for her to be a truck driver. Just all that stupid shit. But it's like, I went through all of that, you know, my mom's history to get into this right now. That, you know, usually, like when people say that, I mean, I understand now when people talk about generational curses and just how trauma just gets passed down the bloodline. Like, I understand it now. It makes sense. Because it's like, it really does seem like a curse. You know, I'm not trying to be superstitious, but it really does. Because it's like, sometime, this is more of what she's telling me now, about sometime after her and my dad got married, you know, my biological dad, she finds out that he's like addicted to crack cocaine, and that, you know, he turns out to be an abusive man. And she would tell me stories about how my dad would try to just beat her, how they would just be sitting on the couch one day and just everything would seem fine, and then all of a sudden just my dad would just throw a punch at her, try to hit her in her head, and my mom would get out the way just in time. And then she talks about, like, while we were still kids, how she had to jump over a balcony to get away from this man, you know, because he was blocking the front door, so she couldn't leave. So she said, she practically won't shut up about that story, but she always tells me, like, just to get away from this guy, she had to jump over a balcony and leave us behind. And, you know, and I guess it's true, because when I was talking to, like, my older brother about that story, he confirms it, that he remembers seeing that. You know, he remembers, even though he was a kid, he remembers seeing that go down. And so, you know, just all crazy stuff. She would tell me about some of the crazy things he would say during, like, these domestic disputes, how he would say crazy things, like when she was pregnant, how he'll cut her open and watch the fetus flop around like a, you know, motherfucking fish, you know, just real violent, vile shit that he would say and do to her. And so, without dragging this on, that's basically the history of us getting here. Is just a mixture of unprepared parenting, adulthood, or, like, you know, unprepared parenting and abuse. And, you know, my mom says, like, oh, she was preparing for us to be here, but man, we all know the truth. Like, we all know she wasn't prepared to be no parent. I mean, if you heard just how she would describe it, none of us was planned to be here. Well, she says I was, like, it was planned up to me, and then my youngest brother, like, who unfortunately, like, you know, he's the severely autistic one. He was the unplanned one, but it's like, really, she didn't know what she was doing on any one of us. You know, she had one of us by a random dude. She didn't know what she was doing, and she keeps saying, like, oh, she wanted to start a family, but and she can't, when I ask her about why, she can't give a good reason why. Like, she would tell me, like, oh, well, because this is what family parents do. Like, so I'm getting into all of this because y'all seen the situation that I'm living in. Y'all seen the craziness. Y'all have heard the yelling. You have seen it. You've seen me barricading my door just to try to ensure my own safety in case this woman pops off. Like, I told y'all about how violent she can be, how she threatens to kill people, all that crazy stuff. And I'm getting into all this because this isn't just exclusive to this household. It seems like every single person that grew up under my granny, they turned out fucking crazy as shit. The Uncle Reggie, who was always being beaten and he didn't know fucking why. I mean, I told y'all before about him, like he wound up living homeless his entire life and going to prison once, and now he's back in prison for damn near beating some guy half to death. My auntie is crazy as shit, She was verbally and physically abusive, just had a ratchet mouth. I mean, well, I know I'm one to talk because, I be cussing up a storm on here, but it's like her, like she would talk about you, she would berate you, just call you all sorts of crazy things that you should never say to a kid, saying just how stupid you are, how a cat's smarter than you, and just how, all sorts of messed up shit. And I would witness her, just how abusive she could be. This woman was so bad that it, to the point to where when she started having kids, and I'm talking about my auntie now, one of the kids turned out autistic too, I don't know what it is about autism that just runs in this bloodline where just one or two of the kids turn out autistic. And I think she had more kids recently, and it turns out they're autistic. It turns out they're autistic, so I don't know what the fuck is really going on with that. But the one autistic person, who I'm not going to mention his name, she drove him insane. She drove this dude so insane. Like, now I only know this from secondhand accounts, but apparently she was cussing him out every single day, berating him, just kind of like, the same shit that's kind of going on over here, except it was worse. Like how she just wasn't doing anything to really be a parent to him or to really help him adjust in this life or to do things to maybe be more independent. Instead, she just left him in a dark room all day, every day, and was just cussing him out every day, just talking about him. And allegedly, she was using him to babysit, my cousin's kids. Again, this is all secondhand information. So just to, I'm just going to say allegedly because I didn't see any of it, but apparently, he went so insane from that that he would start to poison the babies, and it's like the only reason he didn't succeed is because they would catch him in the nick of time, or just walk in on him while he was trying to poison the formula with something. The most recent thing that I heard, which was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, was that he actually burned down the family house. He went through, busted up all the TVs with a blunt force object, and he caught the stove on fire somehow, and the house almost burned down. Luckily, no one was in it, but I think he was there by himself. I don't, hopefully the babies weren't there in that, but yeah, he tried to burn down the house, and the only reason it didn't burn down all the way, I think, is because they said it was a pipe, like a water pipe up in the ceiling or in the wall somewhere, that bursted through the wall, like, while it was burning, and it kind of put out the fire. But it's like the house was unlivable after that, so it's like my auntie and them ended up having to move, and then he would move in with his dad. And from what I heard, he was actually, like, beating his dad every day. And his dad, like, I think he's up there in age. Like, I think he's like 60 or 70 something. So he can't really fight back like he used to. And he would just beat this man. And like, it's crazy, like, and after that started coming out, my mom tried to take him in, and I don't really know what happened after that, because my mom says that he was trying to threatening to burn down this house, but it's like I was there to see what was going on. Exactly like just how I talk about how she messes with me. She was messing with this man. She was messing with this dude, and she would just constantly antagonize him, doing all the same bullshit, pulling knives on him, pulling box cutters on him, not letting them fucking go to sleep and shit, constantly waking them up, forcing him to talk about shit. And it's like, yeah, you bring in a fucking lion and you work it up some more, and then you expect nothing to happen about it. So I guess that scared her, and she called the police to have him taken away. And so, just it's crazy stuff, man. Because when I look back over just the things that I was told about my family and what I've seen and what I've been through, it's crazy how these people can just have kids and proceed to be the worst kinds of people there is. My granny included. I'm not exempting her from this. But yeah, I think my folks just pulled up. So this is part 1 or part 2 of me getting into, I guess, my family and all of that shit. And I'll get back to y'all with another one real soon.